All right, real talk for a second. Something low-key big is happening with this team right now, and I feel like not enough people are talking about it. Like, yeah, it wasn't the flashiest off-season, no crazy headlines every day, but if you actually look closer, you start to realize they've been moving smart, really smart. It's like they're setting everything up behind the scenes, piece by piece, making sure they're not just good for a moment, but built to actually compete the whole season. And honestly, if a couple things go right, this could turn into something way more serious than people expect. But first, tell me, do you believe we can win this season? If so, right, I believe. And be sure to click the like button and stick with me, I'll keep you well informed. There's something quietly unfolding inside the Minnesota Vikings organization that most of the league isn't fully paying attention to yet. And if you blink, you might miss how calculated, how deliberate, and frankly how dangerous this master plan is becoming heading into the 2026 NFL season. Because while other teams were making noise, throwing money around, chasing headlines, the Vikings were building something much more controlled, much more surgical. And it all starts with one move that could redefine everything. Let's go straight to it. The arrival of Kyler Murray. This wasn't just another free agency pickup. This was a statement. A one-year, $1, $3 million deal that, on the surface, looks like a low-risk gamble. But when you dig deeper, it might end up being one of the most valuable signings across the entire NFL. And no, that's not exaggeration. That's understanding context. Because what the Vikings did here was solve their biggest problem without sacrificing their future. They didn't overpay. They didn't panic. They didn't lock themselves into a long-term risk. Instead, they created competition. They created flexibility. And most importantly, they created stability. Right now, the quarterback room features Kyler Murray, J.J. McCarthy, and Carson Wentz. That's not just depth. That's insurance at every level. No matter what happens, injuries, inconsistency, development timelines, this team has a serviceable option ready to step in every single week. And that's exactly what head coach Kevin O'Connell has been emphasizing all offseason, maintaining a baseline level of offensive execution regardless of circumstances. Now here's where it gets really interesting, because if Kyler Murray hits, and that's the key word, if he hits, this entire conversation changes. We're talking about a player with a Heisman Trophy, Offensive Rookie of the Year, multiple Pro Bowl selections, and one of the most unique athletic profiles the league has ever seen. This is a quarterback who was drafted top 10 in both the NFL and MLB. That's not just talent, that's generational-level ability. And yet, somehow, he lands in Minnesota on a deal that barely scratches the salary cap. Why? Because of concerns, injuries, narrative, doubt. Over the past few seasons, Murray has dealt with an ACL tear, ankle issues, and a midfoot sprain that limited his availability. Critics question durability. Critics question consistency. But here's the part nobody can ignore. When Kyler Murray is on the field, he produces. And maybe even more telling. When he's not? The Arizona Cardinals have been a completely different team, posting a brutal 2-19 record in games without him since 2023. That's not just a drop-off, that's a collapse. So now, place that same quarterback into a system that already has structure, coaching stability, and a defined identity. That's where things start to shift. Because unlike Arizona, Minnesota already has an offensive foundation in place, a system that has proven it can win games, not just with one quarterback, but with multiple. O'Connell himself pointed it out. Wins with Kirk Cousins, wins with Sam Darnold, and now the expectation is that the system elevates whoever steps into it next. So the real question becomes, what happens if Kyler Murray doesn't just fit, but thrives. Because if he reaches even a top 12 level of quarterback play, this isn't just a good signing anymore. It becomes a turning point. And suddenly, the Vikings aren't just competitive. They're contenders. But here's the part that makes this even more intriguing. This move wasn't made in isolation. It was step one in a much larger plan. A plan that involved cleaning up the roster, shedding inefficient contracts, and quietly reshaping the identity of this team without blowing everything up. And that's where the Vikings made another critical decision. Moving on from aging, expensive pieces that no longer matched their trajectory. We're talking about names like Jonathan Allen and Javon Hargrave, players with recognition but diminishing impact within this specific system. The reality? They weren't even major contributors down the stretch, playing limited snaps while younger players started to outproduce them. This wasn't just about cap space. This was about evolution. And the Vikings leaned into it. They chose youth. They chose efficiency. They chose upside. And quietly, without the spotlight, they started building a roster that is not only more flexible, but potentially more dangerous. Now, I want to hear from you. Are you buying into this Kyler Murray move as the turning point for the Vikings? Or do you still have doubts about his impact in Minnesota? Drop your thoughts in the comments right now, because this is where the debate really begins. And this is where the Vikings' strategy starts to separate itself from what most teams around the league are doing. Because while others are chasing star power, Minnesota is maximizing value in every corner of the roster. Let's talk about one of the most underrated parts of this entire offseason. Smart, calculated signings that didn't break the bank but could have massive impact on Sundays. Start with James Pierre. This move flew under the radar for a lot of fans, but internally, this is viewed as a huge win. A 2-year, $8.5 million deal for a corner who quietly put together one of the most efficient coverage seasons in the league. When targeted, Pierre allowed just 14 completions on 33 throws, only 1 touchdown, and posted a quarterback rating against of 52.8. That's elite-level production. Not good, not solid, elite. And what makes it even more interesting is the familiarity. His connection with defensive coordinator Brian Flores and defensive backs coach Gerald Alexander means he's not walking into a new system blind. He already understands the expectations, the schemes, the discipline required in this defense. That's how you shorten the adjustment curve. That's how you get immediate impact. Now add another piece. Ryan Van Demark. Not a flashy name, not a headline grabber, but exactly the type of player winning teams stack on their roster. A versatile offensive lineman who can step in at tackle or guard, who graded out well across both pass protection and run blocking, and who gives this team something incredibly valuable: flexibility. And flexibility matters, especially when you're trying to protect a quarterback like Kyler Murray, whose game thrives when structure and mobility work together. Then there's a move that might not get fans out of their seats, but coaches absolutely love it. Johnny Hekker. Yes, a punter, but not just any punter. One of the most consistent and respected specialists of the last decade. Field position is an underrated weapon, and Hekker brings not only elite punting ability, but also reliability as a holder. These are the small edges that flip close games, and the Vikings are clearly prioritizing those margins. And here's the part that should really catch your attention. Minnesota paid their punter more than they're paying Kyler Murray. Think about that for a second. That's not just a fun fact. That's a reflection of how strategically this front office is operating. Every dollar matters. Every role matters. Now, zoom out a bit, because this isn't just about individual signings. It's about the core identity this team is building. Offensively, the Vikings are anchored by one of the most dangerous young duos in the league, Justin Jefferson and Jordan Addison. You pair that with a stable offensive line foundation and a head coach in Kevin O'Connell who continues to evolve as a play caller, and suddenly it doesn't feel like the quarterback needs to carry the team. The system elevates the quarterback. That's been proven already. And defensively? This might be where things get even more exciting, because Brian Flores isn't just coordinating a defense. He's building a unit with identity, aggression, and versatility. A group that can adapt week to week, disguise looks, and create pressure from multiple angles. Look at the names forming this core: Andrew Van Ginkel, Dallas Turner, Jonathan Greenard, and the rising force that is Jalen Redmond. Redmond's story alone is incredible. From the XFL to becoming a potential perennial All-Pro candidate. That's development. That's scouting. That's coaching. And when you combine all of this, the offensive weapons, the defensive identity, the depth, the flexibility, you start to see the full picture. Because now, the Vikings enter the NFL draft with something most teams only claim to have: freedom. Real freedom. They are not forced into a position. They are not desperate for a single need. They can truly draft the best player available. And that changes everything. Whether it's a wide receiver like Jordan Tyson, a safety, a defensive tackle, or even making an aggressive move up the board for a player they believe in, every option is on the table. That's power. That's preparation. That's what happens when an off-season is executed with discipline instead of emotion. And here's the final piece of the puzzle: expectations. This team won 9 games last season despite inconsistent quarterback play, ranking near the bottom of the league in QBR. And now, they've upgraded the room, stabilized the roster, and strengthened the foundation. So what's next? Double-digit wins isn't just a possibility. It's becoming the expectation. And if that happens, if this plan fully comes together, we might look back at this quiet off-season as the moment everything changed for the Minnesota Vikings. Now, I want to hear from you. Are the Vikings really a double-digit win team this season? Or is the hype getting ahead of reality? And more importantly, do you believe this master plan actually puts Minnesota back on top of the NFC North? Drop your takes in the comments, hit that like button, and make sure you're subscribed. Because if this all unfolds the way it's trending, you're not going to want to miss what comes next. Go Vikings!